while back, I was talking about, this voice in your head, the one that says, you suck. And I called that voice the judge. Well, you're not the only one with that voice. Everybody has this judge voice. And not only does the judge tell you that you're stupid or incapable or unworthy of love, it also judges other people, like your boss. He's an idiot. Your client is ridiculous. And that driver, well, you know what that driver is. So then to top it off, the judge also judges everything around you. Like, you'll be happier when you find your girlfriend, or things will finally be better when you get that raise. And if we only had that one voice in our head, fighting back at the judge would be relatively easy. It would just be us against the judge. But the judge doesn't fight fair. The judge has this gang of accomplice saboteurs, and one of them is the hyperachiever. This is Mental Fitness Fridays. I'm Larry McInnes, and you are awesome. So let's do a little deep dive and see if you can recognize this saboteur, either in yourself or someone you know. And I'm willing to bet that you know someone who you or others have thought of as a workaholic. Or maybe someone has called you that. That's the hyperachiever in your head. So who is this saboteur? Well, the hyperachiever is dependent on constant performance and achievement for any kind of self-respect and self-validation. The hyperachiever is focused on getting the attention and acceptance of other people too. The hyperachiever leans toward these workaholic tendencies and ignoring other needs like their relationships. And the hyperachiever is really good at covering up insecurities and showing a positive image to the outside world. Well, remember, the hyperachiever wants you to think it is you who needs to constantly perform just to maintain some level of self-respect. The hyperachiever is not you, but it is pulling the levers in your brain. Now, how do I know that the hyperachiever is running your show? Because I know your greatest strengths. You're driven, sensible, adaptable, goal-oriented, you're self-directed. You're capable of growing yourself and others so you can achieve your full potential and maybe others' full potential. And when you direct these strengths to your own personal growth, you can be pretty inspiring, which is pretty darn good, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So what's the problem? The problem is the hyperachiever turns your greatest strengths into your greatest weaknesses by abusing them or overusing them. And the hyperachiever makes you want to be the best at what you can do, because if you can't be outstanding, why bother, right? Well, sometimes you may feel depressed or empty inside, but you don't like to dwell on that. These stupid emotions get in the way of performance, and they distract you from achieving your goals. But as long as you're successful and people think well of you, well, you must be worthy. Well, this can lead to some serious anxiety when you realize that peace and happiness are fleeting and short-lived in these brief celebrations of achievement. And it's hard to accept yourself unless and until your next big success comes along. So you push yourself to achieve more, but in doing so, you lose touch with your deeper feelings and your ability to connect on a deeper level with the people you love. Other people might be pulled into your performance vortex, and then they become lopsided in their focus on external achievement. So where does all this come from? The hyperachiever might have come from your childhood. And maybe this self-validation, the self-acceptance, or self-love are all conditioned on continual performance to gain the attention and acceptance of your parents. And maybe the validation and love of your parents came with the condition that you had to have good grades or make winning touchdowns. Or maybe that validation and love was missing altogether. Well, maybe you did have loving parents and improving parents, but you still had the sense that you were loved because you were you obeyed the rules, you had good manners, and instead of being loved for just who you were. Maybe. But remember also, the hyperachiever was already genetically and evolutionarily pre-wired in your brain. Childhood conditions or events may have been the trigger that the hyperachiever needed. But the hyperachiever was going to show itself anyway. So you can kind of lay off the guilt trip on your parents. Now remember, you have natural strengths. You're driven. You're sensible. You're adaptable. You have the ability to guide others and yourself as well to achieve everyone's full potential. And you're inspiring. Well, the hyperachiever has turned these strengths into weaknesses. The hyperachiever says life is about achieving and producing results. He says portraying a good image helps you achieve those results. And feelings just get in the way and they don't help anything. Well, the hyperachiever has been lying to you. The hyperachiever has teamed up with the judge to convince you that you'll be happy when the next achievement happens. But science has shown that achievement-oriented fulfillment only leads to short-term happiness. So how long were you happy after that last big achievement? And what happened after that? There's a price to pay for pinning your self-worth on the attention and acceptance and validation of others. And that price is your power. In other words, you've given your power away. And I'll get into how to take back your power in just a second. Hi guys, I'm Larry, and you are awesome. I want to share with you that I wrote an ebook and it is now officially available. It's called Become Awesome with Science. It ties everything together that I've been talking about in one tidy package. And it explains how we forgot that we're awesome, the ways we sabotage our best efforts to live the lives we want, and how to rediscover our true awesome selves. And this is a way to boost one's peak performance, strengthens one's relationships, and improve one's mental well-being. If you'd like to purchase a copy, just tap a link in my bio or go to larrymcinnes.com and head over to the shop tab. And with that, have an awesome day. All right. So, how do you take back your power from the hyperachiever? Well, by moving from saboteur mode to sage mode. Fortunately for us, along with these saboteurs and this judge, we also have an inner wise one, this inner sage. And the sage operates with empathy and curiosity and creativity and distraction and laser focused action. So you can keep your strengths, but put them in the sage's hands. And here's how we're going to do it. So take a deep breath and mentally step back from this achievement game for a few minutes. Cut yourself some slack. Show yourself a little grace. And now you can do this. Close your eyes right now. Breathe deep and picture yourself sitting on one of those little chairs in your first grade classroom, staring straight into the eyes of your younger self. And you can tell them it's okay. And then let your younger self tell you that the hyperachiever actually results in lower achievement. and like, wow, how did this kid get so smart? That job or that project you're working on, turn it into a game. Have fun and play passionately to win, but at the same time, know that the outcome doesn't matter really. And that job or project that you're working on is actually an arena for self-actualization. And this is where you need to know yourself. And by that, I mean the self. And to know your true self, you've got to know your emotions. So that hyper achieving saboteur is going to love that, right? So how are you feeling? I'm not going to claim that this is easy, but this mental fitness is always rewarding. And with that, I will see you next week at this time on Mental Fitness Fridays.